Welcome to the 13th Door. Today we bring you 5 spine-chilling horror stories that will make your skin crawl. Sit back, relax, and let the sound of rain and fear take over. Story number 3 is truly terrifying. If you're faint-hearted, you should only listen to the first 2 episodes. But if you're brave enough, dare to listen until the end of the video. Story 1. The Knocking at 3 a.m.
That November, it rained non-stop for 17 days. The small wooden house isolated deep in the Oregon woods, where Harold and Martha Bell had lived in seclusion for over 20 years, turned into a giant, damp coffin. Each night was swallowed in howling wind, branches clawing the walls, and rain tapping like needles on the rusty tin roof. 3 a.m. already, Harold muttered, eyeing the pendulum clock in the living room, gripping his old hunting rifle. For 3 consecutive nights, at exactly 3 a.m., someone knocked on the door. Slowly, heavily, not urgently, like the living, but not soulless like the wind. Martha trembled, leaning against her husband on the armchair near the fireplace. The fire sputtered. Wind howled across the roof like a throat being ripped open. "It's coming again." "Shh, if it hears you," Harold whispered. The room smelled of mold and wet wood. He held the rifle tighter, eyes fixed on the trembling wooden door. 3 knocks. Thump, thump, thump. The sound echoed through the cabin, slow, steady, like the heartbeat of someone already dead. 3 nights earlier was the first knock. Harold opened the door, but found only a downpour. No footprints, no sounds, just a bloody, muddy handprint smeared across the glass. The second night, the knocking came earlier. They didn't open the door. On the 3rd night, Martha swore she saw someone standing behind the door, through the lace curtain. Over 6 feet tall, head bowed, drenched in a torn black raincoat, face completely shrouded in darkness. "I saw it, Harold. It had no face, no nose, no mouth, just 2 black pits like maggots burrowed in rotting flesh." Harold didn't believe her. Not until he found drag marks on the porch the next morning. Deep, long streaks like someone had been pulled away but left no body behind. They nailed shut every window, bolted every door, built makeshift barricades around the porch. Still, the knocks came, always at 3 a.m. sharp, never early, never late. On the 4th night, the rain fell heavier. The fireplace died. The oil lamp flickered. In the dim light, Mother wiped what she thought was mud from the floor, only to realize It was a torn scrap of human flesh caught on the table leg. Harold walked in. They stared at each other. "We're not alone." They rushed to the second floor, locking themselves inside the bedroom. Then the knocking came from inside the house. 3 knocks. From the kitchen. "Ow!" Harold screamed, pointing the rifle down the staircase. No one had a spare key. No signs of forced entry. But the knocks continued. From the living room, then the bathroom, then the wardrobe. It was inside the house. Harold finally unlatched the main door, desperate to flee. Martha followed barefoot, her nightgown torn. They flung the door open and saw themselves standing on the porch. Perfect replicas, except for one thing. Their faces had been peeled off. The skin pulled back like wet paper, revealing raw meat and gaping sockets. 2 dark holes leaked pus where their eyes should have been. Their tongues hung out like worms. The doppelgangers raised their hands and knocked on Harold and Martha's foreheads. Harold fired. They didn't fall. They screeched like metal dragging across bone and lunged. Police arrived after catching a distorted distress signal on the Oldham radio. Inside the house, they found 2 human faces, peeled and dried, hung neatly on the front door like ornaments. No bodies, no blood, just one message scratched deep into the wooden floor with what looked like a fingernail. The door was knocked. The door must open.
Continuing with story number 2, The Last Night at Route 66 gas station. And story number 3 is approaching.
The wind howled through the decaying gas station on the rolled Route 66. The rain slammed down like furious claws on rusted tin. Inside, Eli, 25, was halfway through his graveyard shift. He was alone, as always. The closest town was 30 miles away, swallowed by desert and dead highways. There were no phones, no working CCTV, and the emergency line had gone dead last winter. A yellowed map of the surrounding area was tacked to the back wall, marked in red pen and faded smears of something darker, possibly dried blood. In jagged handwriting it read, "If you see the man with the dog face, don't open the door." Eli always figured it was a joke, some burnout clerk screwing with the new guy. That is, until the 12th night of rain when the first knock came. Tap, tap, tap. Eli paused his comic and froze. The knock hadn't come from the front entrance. It came from the side window near the bathroom, a place no one ever used. He slowly got up, heart kicking against his ribs, the buzz of the overhead light suddenly deafening. The side window was fogged. Rain poured like a waterfall against the glass. He leaned closer. A shape moved, tall, slumped, wrapped in a soaking black coat. And a face. No, a mask. It looked like a snarling Rottweiler's face, wet and rotting, like something peeled from a real dog and stretched onto a human skull. The thing behind the glass tilted its head. Eli stumbled back. Tap, tap, tap again. He ran to the back office, locked the door, grabbed the emergency flashlight, and just in case, the baseball bat behind the file cabinet. He turned on the shortwave radio. Just static. Frantic. "Hello? Desperate. Anyone? This is station 114. I think someone's..." Click. The signal died. The flashlight beam trembled as he moved toward the bathroom, where the window faced. The door creaked open. The floor was soaked with muddy footprints. In the center of the tile, a severed human tongue, still wet. On the mirror, written in something dark and smeared, "Let him in." Yuck, yuck. Eli gagged, turned to run. The door slammed shut behind him. The lights went out. A deep humming began, low and guttural, like a voice whispering just beneath hearing. He crawled out the bathroom window and sprinted to the front desk, heart hammering. Rain soaked him instantly. The floodlights flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed the highway. Lightning flashed. The man with the dog face stood at pump 3. But now, his arms were longer, bone pale and twitching. The fingers fused into claws. The dog mask writhed. He started walking toward the station. Eli slammed the front door shut, dragging a vending machine against it. He ducked under the counter, crawling into the maintenance crawl space. He could hear it now, the scratching, inside the walls. Then, knocking. From inside the crawl space. Knock, knock, knock. He turned the flashlight and saw a mouth stitched shut, smiling from the darkness. Someone else was in here, or had been. Their skin peeled, body folded in unnatural angles. The smell of wet fur and meat filled the space. Suddenly, screaming! Screaming from the speaker system. A woman's voice. Let him in. Eli bolted out. The storm peaked. Water flooded the station floor. The flickering open sign outside sparked and hissed, casting pulses of sickly red light into the pitch-dark interior. Eli staggered through ankle-deep water, his breath fogging the air. He could hear footsteps now. Wet, squelching ones, inside the store, behind the rows of candy and motor oil. And that same awful sound, a low snarl, not fully canine, not fully human. Eli crawled behind the counter, clutching the bat. The wall clock, still running on battery, clicked over. 3 a.m. Knock, knock, knock. Not from the front door, from behind him, from the inside. Eli turned slowly, and the flashlight beam caught it. The man with the dog face, standing behind the shattered coffee machine. Water poured down his coat. The mask of flesh twitched with every breath. The mouth began to open. Except, it wasn't a mouth. It was a wound, spreading wide across where the jaw should be. And from inside it came a voice. A high-pitched, sobbing, screaming, like multiple people crying at once. Eli ran. The back door had been ripped off its hinges. He ran into the rain, onto the slick concrete behind the station, heart thundering. In the flashes of lightning, he saw what was buried in the desert dirt behind the dumpsters. Bodies. Dozens. Wrapped in plastic, throats slit, faces carved off. Some were still twitching. One of them, barely alive, raised a finger to its lips. Shh! Don't let him hear. Then the dog-faced man appeared from the darkness, crawling on all fours like a spider. His limbs bent the wrong way. He screamed, but it sounded like a child's voice played backward.
Eli dragged himself into the garage, slipped on oil, and landed next to a rack of gasoline cans. He had an idea. He doused the garage floor in fuel, lit a road flare, and waited. Hands shaking, he heard wet footsteps at the doorway. The creature entered, ducking under the frame. It sniffed the air. Then, it ripped the dog mask off, and Eli screamed. Underneath was not a face, but a mass of rotting hands sewn together. Fingers twitched where the eyes should be. A mouthless, skinless void pulsed at the center, leaking something thick and black. "Let me in," it rasped, not with a voice, but from inside Eli's own mind. Eli threw the flare. The explosion was instant. Flames tore through the garage, shattering windows, sending black smoke into the sky. Eli was thrown backward, his coat on fire, skin burning, the rain hissing against his blistering flesh. He rolled onto the wet concrete, his vision faded. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was the dog-faced mask floating in a puddle of blood, still twitching. At 6:23 a.m., the fire department arrived. The gas station was a smoking ruin. They found no bodies, no signs of Eli, not even bones. But they did find a message burned into the side of the surviving fuel pump. The doors never lock, not for him. And taped to the pump was a map, freshly printed, a red circle drawn around a gas station 200 miles west. Another forgotten stop. Another night of rain coming.
The final story. The Faceless Traveler. A very scary story. Be careful.
That night, the rain fell like a swarm of rotting fish dumped from the sky. Ethan Cole, a senior studying behavioral psychology, was driving his old Chevrolet Impala along the wet curves of the Appalachians to attend his grandmother's funeral. The headlights were swallowed by the downpour, turning everything in front of him into a milky white blur. Wind slammed against the side of the car, bringing the sense of decaying wood, damp stone, rusty metal, and another smell. Meat. Damp, metallic, sticky. The clock jumped to 2:47 a.m. The radio produced harsh screeches cracking in and out. A female announcer somewhere was describing a fatal accident on the mountain road. Someone disappeared at the scene. Her voice was stretched, distorted as if someone was strangling her in the studio. Ethan switched off the radio, glanced in the rearview mirror, then... The raindrops streaked downward, distorting his tired face. He blinked, and for a moment he thought his face was gone, just a flat black void instead of eyes, nose, mouth. Too little sleep, he murmured, rubbing his forehead. As he passed a narrow turn, his headlights illuminated a figure standing on the roadside. A man, unnaturally tall, wearing a tattered black raincoat, hood pulled low. He raised his hand. Ethan braked, slowing instinctively, for the rain, for the deserted road, for compassion. He leaned down to the window. The rain poured over the back of his neck, soaked through the coat, stinking of rot, mud, and meat. Ethan only had time to see the skin on the man's face, shriveled, glistening. But no eyes, no nose, no mouth. A flat sheet of flesh like cloth, yet it still pulsed as if breathing. Ethan snapped the lock shut, heart pounding, but the man, faceless, didn't step away. He pressed his palm against the wet glass, pressing hard. 5 long streaks smeared across, leaving fresh blood in the rain. Ethan flicked on the wipers and turned the wheel. The tires skidded through a deep puddle. The Impala lurched. When he straightened the car, the man was in the back seat. Ethan jerked, nearly plunging into the ravine. Oh, God! He couldn't finish the sentence. Faceless, no eyes, but he felt it watching him. Something stirred behind that moist white flesh.
He floored it. On the rear window, letters began to appear in blood, as though an invisible hand had clawed them out.
Don't look at my face. Don't ask who I am. I've been here along. Ethan blinked. No. He had just let him in, of course, right? The road curved sharply. Ethan steered hard. He heard bones crunching behind him, like something being ground to splinters. The mirror shook violently. The man didn't move, only the flesh on his face quivered, as if a hand beneath was pushing up. Rain pounded relentlessly. As the only street lamp blurred by, Ethan heard a voice. From the back seat, from that melfless thing. 3 o'clock. Open the door. The voice had no tone, no pitch, like a thought penetrating Ethan's mind, not entering through his ears. 3 o'clock. The clock said 2:59. Ethan hit the gas. No, he had just let him in. Of course, right? The road curved sharply. Ethan steered hard. He heard bones crunching behind him, like something being ground to splinters. The mirror shook violently. The man didn't move, only the flesh on his face quivered, as if a hand beneath was pushing up. Rain pounded relentlessly. As the only street lamp blurred by, Ethan heard a voice. From the back seat, from that mouthless thing. 3 o'clock. Open the door. The voice had no tone, no pitch, like a thought penetrating Ethan's mind, not entering through his ears. 3 o'clock. The clock said 2:59. Ethan hit the gas. The road snaked like ribs thrusting up from the earth. He needed to descend the mountain, find light, find people, a gas station, a bar, a motel, anything. 3 o'clock. The radio turned on by itself. From it came heavy, deliberate knocks, not from outside, not from inside, but coming from everywhere. Knock, knock, knock. Ignore it, Ethan muttered, but his hand hit the door lock. Like someone grabbed his hand, twisted his knuckles, forced him to unlock it. A loud click echoed in the rain. The door cracked open. Wind and water slammed into Ethan's face. He screamed, yanked it shut, locked it, pounding the handle until his hand went numb. The back seat was empty. The faceless traveler, gone. On the windshield ahead, the rain ripped away, and among the droplets, a message appeared, written from the inside. Never open the door at exactly 3 o'clock. If you're even slightly late, he'll have to wait. But you opened it. Ethan braked. The car skidded to the shoulder, front end teetering over the edge. He gasped for air. Mist and rain melded into a cold, wet blanket over him. Ahead, through the rain, a rotting wooden sign appeared. Motel, Hollow Pines, vacancy, 2 miles. Ethan decided go there, find people, call the police, anyone. Then he'd figure out how to scrub the voice. The command echoing in his head, 3 o'clock, open the door. At 3:24 a.m., Ethan pulled into the lot of a rundown motel. The neon sign flickered sickly green. Black water, like oil, dripped from the roof. Behind the reception desk, a figure, an elderly woman with wild gray hair, stared out the window. She didn't blink. Ethan stepped inside. The bell tinkled softly. Hello, he started, but she interrupted. You opened the door at 3 o'clock. Surprised, Ethan froze. He glanced around. Dust-covered trinkets, mold-stained walls, damp carpet smell. Behind her, an old TV silently displayed garbled footage of a man in a car, the interior of Ethan's Impala. You opened the door, didn't you? She repeated, voice hollow and even. I didn't. Before he could explain, she placed a key on the counter. Room 9. He took it. She didn't take his money. Confused. No charge? Ethan asked. She stared at him, her eyes like 2 dark holes. You already paid. With your face. Ethan touched his face. It was cold. He felt his cheekbones.
He sensed the area around his eyes being tugged, but when he looked into the stained glass of the counter mirror, he still saw his face. Eyes, nose, mouth, all there, but delayed. It moved slower than his real face. It looked before he did. It opened before he could. Ethan shivered and stepped back. "Go to sleep," the old woman said. "Don't open the door if you hear knocking." "When?" he asked. She tilted her head unnaturally. "It's always 3 o'clock here."
Room 9 was small, stifling, permeated by mildew. Ethan locked the door, closed the curtains, turned off the lights. Darkness fell like dozens of kilos of black cement. He activated his phone's flashlight. On the wall were long scratches, like fingernail gouges. Near the bed was a puddle spreading, not cold, warm, slimy. When he touched it, red mucus clung to his fingertips. A metallic blood scent hit his nostrils. "Not water," he whispered. Knock, 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 knock. Ethan spun around. The door rumbled. The slow, fleshy knocks came from inside. Not from the door, from the closet. Knock, 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 knock. Ethan slowly approached, hand trembling, the flashlight beam quivering. The closet door swung open on its own. Inside, a figure leaning against the wall. No face, just bare skull. Fleshy face removed and hung on a hanger. 2 empty eye sockets, black. The tongue was sewn shut with thick black thread, still twitching. The figure raised a hand, and on its palm was sliced a single word, carved deep, with blood dripping and mixing with the moist ceiling drip. Run. A high-pitched screech echoed, like someone scraping nails against the edge of the closet. Ethan flicked the light around. No one. He looked back at the faceless person in the closet. Then it vanished. Only the flesh mask swayed gently on the hanger. Ethan spun, pressed his back to the wall. On the TV, he swore it had been off. It now flickered on. The image was fuzzy, but he saw room 9, his room, from a ceiling corner. A tall, faceless figure stood directly behind him, extremely close. Ethan snapped his head. No one. On screen, that face pressed its hand on the back of his head. Knock, knock, knock. Ethan felt it. His scalp chilled. He couldn't turn around. He ran to the door, pulled the knob, but it didn't budge. His eyes burned, as though something was inside, gnawing. Then from under the bed, gaunt purple hands clawed out, grasping his ankles and yanking. He collapsed onto the ground, elbows landing in that warm puddle. When he lifted his head, a face stared at him from the edge of the bed. The face of Ethan himself, completely blank. No emotion, no gaze, just an empty mask. It whispered in his voice, "Give me back my face." Ethan screamed, twisting free, crawling to the corner. All the fixtures in the room swung open. The closet, the bathroom door, the broken window, even the locked hallway door, just cracked enough to let faces peer in. Incomplete faces, some missing eyes, noses, or mouths, some reduced to bare bone, some distorted by stitching. They stared at him, but not exactly at him. They seemed to look through him, searching for something behind. Ethan felt his head about to shatter when the TV behind him pumped radio static again. The accident, the disappearance, the rain, the death time is 3 o'clock. Then a shot of the Impala's dashboard, a wet human face placed atop it. The image changed. Now a lab scene, an autopsy table bathed in cold fluorescent. A human face, skinned, exposed nerves hanging like rotten vines. A surgeon slowly stitches a new face onto it with dark thread. Ethan recognized the eyes. It was Harold Bell, a name from old news he read while researching prosopagnosia, a doctor who once dissected his own son to uncover truth. His Oregon mansion's floors bore the phrase, "The door knocked, the door must open." Then he vanished. "The door must open," echoed inside Ethan's mind. 3 o'clock. Open the door.
What are you doing inside my head?
Ethan shrieked, punching his temples, cheeks. He felt his skin slide, a loose mask. He touched it. The flesh edge was slack, a seam under his chin. From when? Suddenly the door snapped open. The faceless traveler entered. With every step, bones crackled softly. His hand reached out, 10 fingers, and pressed against Ethan's face. Ethan couldn't dodge. He froze like stone. The flesh broke along invisible stitching lines, peeling from bone like plastic. He heard a low, emotionless rip. He watched from afar as someone else was flayed. Blood didn't erupt, it dripped ceremonially. The traveler placed Ethan's face onto his own head, stretched it, aligned it, and stitched it on with black thread. He tilted his head, testing the fit, eyes, nose, mouth moving. He opened his eyes. They were Ethan's. He looked at Ethan, who now had no face, only a taut slab of damp flesh, pulsing softly as if hiding a trapped thought. He whispered in Ethan's voice, "Thank you. I carry on."
Where are you going?
Ethan thought, with no mouth. "To the next one, on a rainy night, from one person to another, from face to face. We call it a pilgrimage." We are those who answered the knock at 3 a.m. and opened. The traveler opened the door and walked into the hallway. Before disappearing, he said, "The door knocked. The door must open. Now it's your turn to knock." When Ethan awoke, it was still dark. The smell of rain, mold, and rust lingered. He rose from the cold floor. He no longer had a face, but he could still see, or rather sense, everything around him without eyes. The room was empty. No puddle, no flesh, no TV, nothing. As if no one had ever been there. Ethan walked into the hall. Each door knocked softly. Inside each room, he sensed someone sobbing, blood seeping from stitches. Beneath the desk, the old woman lay with her face removed, an ugly, gaping hole. Her hand rested on a piece of paper. "Once you open the door, you are no longer you. You become the next knocker." Ethan drove the Impala away. The rain continued. The neon sign behind kept dying. The road ahead was empty, except one figure in a black raincoat standing to meet the car, head bowed. Ethan stopped. The figure climbed in. Ethan smiled, but it was not his smile. It was stiff, distorted, as though sewn on. 3 a.m. Knock. 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 He opened the door. At 7:12 a.m., West Virginia State Police discovered a charred Impala on the roadside in Appalachia, near a sharp bend. No human remains were found. Inside the car was only the dashboard, smeared in bloody handprints, as if someone had tried to spell a message with them. Nearby, a local man claimed he saw a faceless youth walking in the rain, carrying a face in a plastic bag like a pig heart, before entering the woods. The official report said, the victim may have hallucinated due to sleep deprivation, slid off the road in the rain, and fled on foot. No body has been recovered. In internal notes, one line was scribbled in red. Puzzled. Why does every rainfall cause a face loss at 3 a.m.? Who is the knocker? No one answered. Only the rain and soft knocks on the precinct's window at exactly 3 a.m. the following night.
Still, it's the brave ones who stay until the end. Follow me to receive more scary stories every day.